Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous number 41. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And today is our second day of our Harry Potter-palooza.
Yay!
Yay! Our celebration of all things Potter, from the books to the movies. And I think our episode last week was really fun. So,
Even though it was a little long.
it was a little long. Well, we were trying to talk about 3 books in 1 hour. That we should have known that was not going to work.
Yeah, well, that's the only way we could do them all in 1 month.
Yeah, well, see, that is the point. But that's okay. Tonight should be a little bit easier, although we're only talking about 2 books, but these are 2 really big books.
I think it's the 2 longest ones in the series.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I had forgotten how massive Order of the Phoenix was until I actually picked it up and looked at it, and it's like 870 pages or something ridiculous like that. So yeah, we're reading one less book, but I think we're reading more pages total than we did for last week.
Yeah.
Oh well.
And, no, I didn't finish Order of the Phoenix. I had a bad weekend last weekend, and I haven't felt much like reading. I didn't start it until yesterday. I think I did an admirable job.
You read quite a bit for only 2 days.
Well, yeah. And I didn't even read that much today. I read most of it yesterday and last night and, in the wee hours of this morning when I was very pointedly not sleeping. So.
Well, it's not like you haven't read it before, so I think you'll be fine.
I've read it a few times. It'll be okay. But I really wanted to finish it. And if it hadn't been for that pesky nap sneaking up on me, I probably could have done it.
Drat your body's need for sleep.
It's basically eating and sleeping things. They get in the way of my reading.
I'll tell you what. Well, let's see. Are there any other books you want to talk about that you're reading right now?
I did make some progress with Artifact.
Okay.
ARC that I started reading. I think I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
It's pretty good. It's kind of a mystery. The main character is she's a historian, and she finds out that her ex-boyfriend has been killed in a car wreck. And, the next day, she receives this bracelet, this artifact in the mail that he sent her. So she's trying to figure out what it is and why he sent it to her and what he was involved in and why she's now involved in it. And it's pretty good.
It sounds interesting.
It is. I'm looking forward to finishing it once, I get through all this Harry Potter crap.
Yeah. I mean, I'm enjoying reading the books, the Harry Potter books. It's been a really long time since I've read all of them straight through like this. But I'm going to be glad when we're done because they are so big and they take up a lot of time. So the only reason that I'm reading anything else at the moment, I'm reading, let's see, I'm reading 1984 by George Orwell, and I've read it before. It's such a good book. It's really good, and I'm also reading. I needed a book. This is going to sound bad. I needed a book that I could read on my Kindle app on my phone while I'm at work. Because it's hard to sneak an actual book in while you're supposed to be working.
Yeah.
But the Kindle app on the phone, that's fine. That's easy. So I am reading. The book is called Anna Dressed in Blood. Kendare Blake, I think the author's name is. And it's kind of a ghost. Well, it's a ghost story basically about this young boy. Yeah, young boy. He's a teenager. What am I saying? I'm only a couple chapters in. He basically is a ghost hunter, and he finds some violent ghosts that are kind of haunting the place where they died and attacking people and sending them on, as it were, because they're hurting people and killing people. So there's this one particular ghost that's particularly violent, and her name is Anna, and that's where he's going. And he hasn't. That's as far as I've gotten. He's arrived at the town where she supposedly is haunting, and he's trying to find out stuff about this ghost and all that stuff. But it's really interesting. It's really creepy, which is fun. It's another YA book that has a male protagonist, which I think we mentioned before that's not always easy to find. But yeah, other than those 2 books, I don't have anything else that I'm reading except I'll start Half-Blood Prince tomorrow, and then carry on from there.
Well, in theory, I should start it tomorrow. I'm going to try to go ahead and finish Order of the Phoenix tonight. But I don't have 2 to try to read before next week. I only have 1. So.
Yes, I think this is going to be easier.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and just jump into our discussion tonight then. We're talking about Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix. And for me, and I don't know if you feel this way too, but for me, the story really starts, the overarching story really gets going with Goblet of Fire.
Yeah, and a lot of times,
I don't know if that has to do with Voldemort returning. I mean, I'm sure that that's a big part of it, but that's really where things get really serious into the meat of the whole overarching storyline.
Yeah, and a lot of times when I reread these books, I start with Goblet of Fire.
I could see why, yeah.
I mean, I've read the first 3 I've read them all several times.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I know what happens in the first 3. There's not a whole lot. They're good, but they don't just, grab me like 4, 5, 6, and 7 do. So a lot of times I'll start with Goblet of Fire. I have been known to just randomly read Deathly Hallows for no reason. But it does. It sort of, for one thing, Harry really starts growing up in book 4.
Yeah.
And the whole the whole atmosphere gets a lot darker.
Oh, yes. I mean, some people say that it's the getting darker thing starts in Prisoner of Azkaban, and it does a little bit, but it's much more in Goblet of Fire, I think.
Yeah, it's really, really in Goblet of Fire because, in the first 3, you know about Voldemort, you know that he's trying to come back. But in book 4, he succeeds.
Right.
And the whole Triwizard Tournament, especially the second and third tasks, are kind of creepy.
Kind of?
Okay, they're really creepy. Especially the maze. And then you have the whole thing with, you don't know who put Harry's name in the goblet. You don't know why. You don't know if they actually are trying to kill him. You don't know. There's a lot of suspense there.
Right. And the thing, too, is I think it's pretty obvious by now that with the first 3 books, is there's kind of, I don't want to say a formula, but J.K. Rowling likes to throw in the plot twist at the end.
Right.
You think it's going to be Snape getting the Sorcerer's Stone, but it turns out to be Quirrell. Or you don't expect Ginny Weasley to be the one that opens the Chamber of Secrets because she's being possessed by Voldemort when he was a teenager, who's actually Tom Riddle, who you didn't realize was the bad guy.
Right.
Or the whole thing with Sirius, you think he's the bad guy, turns out, nope, not exactly. He's actually the good guy who was trying to break out of prison to get the bad guy. These plot twists that you don't see coming, and even rereading them, knowing what I know, it's still so easy to be like, oh yeah, oh wait, no, that's not what she's doing. And you can still let yourself get kind of lost in that, even though you already know.
She's really good at those.
Well, the thing that got me this time, and it was really funny, I guess, because I was thinking about the whole plot twist thing. But in Goblet of Fire, we're really like jumping ahead here, but that's okay. In Goblet of Fire, she has 2 plot twists back to back, and that's the thing that I thought was really, really awesome, because first you find out that Mad-Eye Moody is not helping Dumbledore and helping Harry, but he's the bad guy. Plot twist number 1. But then you find out that's not him. Plot twist number 2. And it's like back to back, and I wonder how Harry got through this series without going into some sort of therapy. Because I'll tell you what, this poor kid, especially by the end of Order of the Phoenix, he is so messed up. You don't know how he still knows which way is up anymore.
And it really starts to show in Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah. When we have all caps lock Harry.
Yes. But we're jumping ahead again. Goblet of Fire, we have one of my favorite part of the books that I am so ticked off was not in the movies properly.
Would that be
the Quidditch World Cup?
Quidditch World Cup, yep.
I'm like, we have seen school kids playing Quidditch. This is our chance to see pros.
We want to see the real deal.
Right. I want to see the pros play Quidditch. But no.
Yeah.
We get to see the Quidditch teams come out. We don't get to see any of the play, and instead we get this stupid CGI sequence with the dragon that has no place there.
Right. No, I agree. The whole chase with the dragon, I mean, basically that was their way of showing off their miniature of Hogwarts. You know, look at how pretty it is and all that, because we're flying over it, and it did seem kind of pointless. But I will say that the Goblet of Fire movie had probably one of my favorite plot line cuts of the movies, because when you have so many plot lines, it's like when you had to get rid of Hermione's devotion to trying to free the house elves.
Right.
You know, okay. But I think it worked out really well that the movies left out the entire thing about Ludo Bagman.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere. It's a complete and total red herring.
Yeah, it's just kind of there for a little bit of comedy relief type.
And so that was actually a big part of the book that they could leave out and completely get away with it. But yes, anyway, so they go to the Quidditch World Cup, which we didn't get to see in the movie, boo. And after the game is over, there are this group of people who are wandering through the campsite and blasting away tents, and they have the owners of the campsite, which is a family of muggles, suspended up in the air, and they're all wearing hoods and ropes and masks, so you can't see who they are. And that's the first time you find out about the Death Eaters.
Yes.
Who are
nasty thought, those are.
Yes, they are. And these are the followers of Voldemort, who aren't as hidden as one would have hoped.
Yeah.
They're starting to come out, and of course this throws everybody into a panic, and you have several people trying to help the poor muggles that are, being suspended in air. And I think one of the children, they were like spinning around like a top, and they were doing horrible things. And so Harry and Ron and Hermione and the other kids, they're kind of hiding in the woods around the campsite, waiting for everything to be settled down. And then somebody shoots the dark mark into the air. And it's the first time it's been seen since Voldemort's downfall. And that's when Panic Number 2 happens.
Yeah, and then they come along and try to accuse Harry of doing it.
Well, it was his wand that did it.
Yeah, well, that's all explained later on.
Well, yeah.
But, they're trying, they freak out about it. They think, at first it's like, one of the kids did it, and then they find Harry's wand, and Harry's wand did it, and they try to say Harry did it, and Harry's like, I wouldn't even know how. I mean, really, none of them have any way of knowing that spell.
No.
Or how to, do it. But, Crouch is kind of twitchy.
Yeah, he's one of the ministry officials, and you find out that his house elf, who was supposedly saving him a seat at the World Cup, which he never showed up to see, she's found with the wand, or stunned, because they shot a whole bunch of stunner spells. But so that's our introduction to Winky, who is not in the movies anywhere.
No,
and I'm not really fussed about it.
Well, I mean, they even cut Dobby out of the movie.
Yeah, because Dobby was supposed to be in this movie.
But that was mostly, again, that was a part of the whole spew thing that they cut out.
Right.
Without that subplot in there, it's kind of hard to explain why, without Hermione's crusade to free all the Hogwarts house elves, why they keep sneaking into the kitchens to talk to Dobby. Of course, yeah, it also throws a lump in the way they did the whole imposter Mad-Eye thing. But I think they actually made it work. I mean, they showed us the bad guy in a scene that he wasn't supposed to be in.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
But we don't know that's who he is. We don't know, when Mad-Eye shows up, we don't know that it's not Mad-Eye and that it's this other person.
No, they threw him in there, and I mean, you saw him later in the movie anyway, but during the pensive scene. But, like you said...
that was also different than it was in the book.
Yeah, but but you're right. It wasn't detracting. It worked okay.
Yeah. Well, and two, in the movie they had Draco making fun of Harry and Ron and Hermione and all of them because of how crappy their seats were, but in the book they were in the top box with the minister.
Yeah, that was kind of silly, but it also gave them more ways to show that Draco was being a jerk, which
Do we really need any more at this point?
Well, that's true. But
Anyway,
yeah. We find out that Hogwarts is going to be hosting the Triwizard Tournament, which is a contest between the 3 largest wizarding schools. And so, now this was another thing in the movie that I didn't like, is how they made Beauxbaton's Academy an all-girls school and Durmstrang an all-boys school. I mean, that just seemed kind of silly, but...
Well, I think Beauxbaton actually was a girls' school.
No, because there were boys. There were boys that were there. Because at the Yule Ball, when Harry and Ron are ignoring Pavarti and Padme, they go off with Beauxbaton's boys because, they were cute and French and paying attention to them, which Ron and Harry were not doing.
And I don't remember any girls from Durmstrang.
I don't remember any girls from Durmstrang either, but they never really talked about any of them except for Victor Crumb. So I don't remember. But
maybe that's why they did it, because the only, the important students from Beauxbaton were female and the important ones from Durmstrang were male, so they just decided, let's not have them be co-ed.
We'll just go with it. But, so, students from Beauxbaton and Durmstrang show up at Hogwarts, and the contestants will be chosen by the Goblet of Fire, which is, as you would imagine, it's a big goblet and it has fire inside. You put your name on a slip of paper and you put it in the cup, and it will eventually spit out the names of who's going to be competing. There's this whole little thing about they only want 17-year-olds competing because it's going to be very dangerous, and they don't think that anybody under age 17 will be able to handle all of the different things you're going to have to be able to do. And I loved that they kept the thing with Fred and George trying to get over the age line in the movie, and ending up sprouting really big, bushy, gray beards, which was hilarious.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, and leave it to Fred and George to be the ones that would do that.
Well, yeah. But everybody gets together, and it's time to announce who the champions for the 3 schools are going to be. And so Victor Crumb, who was the Bulgarian Quidditch star at the World Cup, he gets chosen for Durmstrang. You have Fleur Delacour, who I think was just picked because her name is fun to say. She's picked from Beauxbaton. And Cedric Diggory was chosen for Hogwarts. Now, he's in Hufflepuff. He plays on the Hufflepuff Quidditch team, so Harry knew him slightly, but not very well. And all of a sudden, the cup starts doing all these weird things, and it spits out a 4th piece of paper. And everybody's like, what the heck's going on? And on the piece of paper, it says, Harry Potter.
Yeah, and everybody's like, what?
What the heck's going on? And this was another thing that was, to me, that they did in the movies, it was just kind of stupid, is in the book, when Harry goes into the other room with the other champions and they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on, Dumbledore, he's very quiet. He's like, what happened? Did you do it? In the movie, he's like yelling and screaming and like almost shaking Harry, and it's just like,
oh yeah,
what in the world happened to Dumbledore?
Oh.
Calm down. You're supposed to be like twinkly and nice, and not that.
Yeah, he went a little cuckoo in the movie, or in the book. He was all tore up about Harry's name showing up, coming out of the goblet. Which, you can't really blame him, because if Harry didn't put it in, then somebody else did, and there's a good possibility that whoever did it wants Harry dead.
Which is what Mad-Eye Moody suggests. Now, he's the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, and he's he used to be an Auror, which was a dark wizard catcher. And he's kind of known for being really paranoid and kind of crazy.
A little bit, yeah.
Which we find out later throughout the year, when he's actually taking the unforgivable curses and not just demonstrating them in front of the class, but actually putting kids in the class under the Imperious Curse to see if they can shake it off.
Yeah.
That's kind of illegal.
A little bit.
Just a little, there's something wrong with that. But let's see. Should we just go ahead and jump to the first task?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, I want to take this opportunity, until we find out that Mad-Eye is not Mad-Eye.
Right.
I really liked him.
I did too. That was the thing that made it so surprising at the end. I wanted to believe that there was this really, cool teacher who did not give a rat's tuchus what any of the other teachers thought and did things his own way. And
He turned Malfoy into a ferret.
he
Okay?
turned Malfoy into a ferret. That makes him my hero. And that was also like a really funny scene in both the book and the movie. They actually kept that pretty faithful in the movie, which was a lot of fun, I have to admit.
Yeah, I liked seeing Malfoy being a ferret. It was quite funny. But yeah, the first task is the dragons, which Harry gets tipped off about. Hagrid takes him and shows him the dragons, which he's also showing Madame Maxime. Basically, you find out that cheating is kind of a expected part of the tournament.
Yeah, they all kind of do it.
So Harry tips off Cedric because he knows that if he doesn't, Cedric won't be prepared.
Well, and he also knew that Cedric was going to be the only one who didn't know, because obviously Hagrid took Madame Maxime in to see them, and Harry ran into Karkaroff, who's the headmaster of Durmstrang, going to see the dragons as well. So he's like, Cedric's the only one who doesn't know, and that's not fair. If we're all going to cheat, then let's at least, even the playing field and have everybody cheat.
Right.
Let's
Harry's
all have the same hint.
Sort of person like that.
He is. That's why we love him.
And in the book, the first task, the whole point of the first task is you're assigned a dragon. And your job is to take the golden egg away from the dragon. And points are awarded on how quickly you do this.
Well, how quickly you do it, and I think if you get points docked if you get injured or something like that.
Yeah. But still, the main point is to get this golden egg and get it as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And which makes the whole let's fly around Hogwarts being chased by a Hungarian horntail scene even more pointless, because it's like the point is to do this quickly.
Right.
And Harry was the fastest one in the book.
Because he uses a summoning spell and summons his broom, and then I liked how he said that now that dragon was nothing but a big old ugly Quidditch team.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
But I mean, in the book, he summons his firebolt and he does some fancy flying and he manages to get his egg quicker than anybody else. And I'm like, it took nowhere near this long in the book.
No.
But they kind of gloss over that. They don't tell you that the point is to do it as quickly as possible, and they don't tell you how quickly the others do it. But still, it just really annoyed me. I'm like, the money you spent CGIing this dragon, you could have CGI'd me a Quidditch match.
That's true.
I'm just saying.
I agree. No, I think the whole point was to show, hey, look, we can make a dragon. Dragons are cool. And, oh, look how awesome Hogwarts is. We built this whole thing of Hogwarts. Look how cool it is. And that's the whole reason. It didn't have to make sense in the story.
How dare I expect that?
I mean, silly girl.
And they all four of them do fairly well with the dragon task. And their golden egg is their next clue.
And you open it and it screams like crazy.
And shrieks. And
yeah. Which actually in the movie they got pretty good.
Yeah. And they have, in the movie, they sort of, the passage of time seems a lot less than it does in the book because they've cut out so many of these little subplots.
Yeah.
It's actually several months until the next task.
Right. But they find out a couple of things. For one thing, one of the little subplots is that Mr. Crouch from the Ministry, he's been not showing up where he's supposed to be, and he's kind of been sending in instructions to actually Percy Weasley, who's his assistant, but nobody's really seen him much. And then Harry sees on the Marauders map, he sees Mr. Crouch, Barty Crouch, in Snape's office, like searching
Right.
Snape's office. And so you start to wonder, what the heck's going on with Barty Crouch? He's not showing up to work, he's not showing up to the Triwizard Tournament, but he's searching Snape's office. And, that's one of the little mysteries that's just kind of throwing out there, because you don't know what's going on with him. You're pretty sure he's not a Death Eater, because you also find out that he was on the Wizarding Court, the Wizengamot.
Yeah.
And I can't remember when it is that we see when Harry goes in the Pensieve. Is that after the second task? I'm trying to remember now.
I don't remember either. It's somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's either right before the second task or right after. But Harry had gone in to speak to Dumbledore and saw the pensieve. That's actually when we find out about the pensieve. It's
Yes,
this big bowl that you can put your memories in, and it looks like kind of silvery, swirling liquid. And so Harry, being the curious lad that he is, sticks his face in it and ends up which is, not what I would have done.
Because you should always stick your face in a bowl of swirling liquid that you encounter in the headmaster's office.
Yeah, that you don't know what it is, and in the wizarding world could be anything.
Yeah.
But he ends up in some of Dumbledore's memories when he served on the Wizengamot, when they were going through Death Eater trials. And he finds out that Karkaroff had been a Death Eater. He finds out that Karkaroff accuses Snape of being a Death Eater, but that Dumbledore had vouched for him and said that Snape had been a Death Eater but turned to our side before the Dark Lord's downfall and served as a spy, so he's loyal. And then you find out about Barty Crouch's son.
Barty Crouch Jr.
Barty Crouch Jr., who was brought in with the Lestranges and some other guy who I don't remember who. And they were arrested and charged with the torture of Frank and Alice Longbottom, who's Neville's parents.
This is where you find out what happened to Neville's parents.
Because he never talks about his parents. He always talks about he's being raised by his grandmother. And this is where you find out what had happened to them, is that this group of people. Now the whole time, Junior's swearing that he's innocent, but Crouch Sr. basically disowns him and sends him to Azkaban. And you find out also that Neville's parents, they'd been under the Cruciatus Curse so badly that they completely lost their minds, to the point where they don't even recognize their son anymore.
Yeah,
and
which is sad.
It's horribly sad. And then the whole thing with Neville, when Mad-Eye Moody was teaching the Unforgivables, when he saw the Cruciatus Curse and what it did, and the whole time he was thinking, that's what happened to my parents. It's just so horrible. And see, like you were saying, you like Mad-Eye Moody because after that whole situation, I mean, obviously Neville was upset by it, and who wouldn't be, but Mad-Eye Moody kind of takes him aside, gives him some herbology books, and kind of encourages him because Neville's really good at herbology, and it's just really nice to this poor kid who's kind of the class screw up because he's not very good at doing a lot of this stuff. But he's nice and he's encouraging, and you like him a lot. He's a good, he's a little crazy teacher, but he's a good teacher. They learned a lot, and he seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah, and he helps Harry too.
Yeah.
He helped Harry with the first task. He's the one that was like, play to your strengths,
Mm-hmm.
and helped him figure out to summon his broom.
Which worked well.
So, you're inclined to like Professor Moody.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where J.K. Rowling gave us what we needed to figure out what was going on. When you find out that Barty Crouch's son is Barty Crouch Jr., you have what you need to figure out why the Marauder's map is showing Barty Crouch in Snape's office.
Yeah, but there's so many other things that you don't know, or other things that are going on that they make you pay more attention to. That's why she's so good at what she does.
Yeah. She's like, I'm going to give you this, but you're going to be looking over here.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sneak it by you.
Yeah, and she's so good at doing that. But, so the second task, Harry figures out you put the egg underwater, so Cedric tells him that you're supposed to put the egg underwater, and it gives you a message saying that, basically, that there's mer people in the Great Big Lake, and they've taken something, and Harry has to go get it back. Well, Harry's not the best of swimmers, and besides that, he was going to have to spend a really long time underwater trying to find the mer people. And this was another deviation from the book, because in the book, it's Dobby who overhears, Moody talking about gillyweed. But in the movie, they gave that to Neville.
Yeah, see, in the movie they did it the way Mad Eye actually intended, because it was in the book that he gave to Neville after the class where he showed the Cruciatus curse.
Right.
He always intended for Neville to be the one that gave Harry the gillyweed.
Right, and since they left Dobby out of this movie entirely, they figured, yeah, okay, well, we'll just do it that way, since that's the way that Mad Eye wanted to do it, and who are we to argue with Mad Eye?
Right. So, I mean, it worked. I can understand, since they cut Dobby out, that was the most logical way to do it.
And it worked too. And besides, it gave Neville some more screen time. So hey, why not? But basically, the gillyweed turns you into kind of a fish-like creature.
Gillyweed gives you gills.
It gives you gills. It gives you webbed hands and feet, and yeah. So it says that they've taken what he will miss most, and Dobby tells him that it's his Wheezy.
Yeah.
His Wheezy. Which
Harry Potter must save his Wheezy.
Yeah. Dobby can be so cute and so annoying at the same time.
He really can. I mean, if it were me and I had a house elf after me like he's after Harry, I would be tempted to strangle him occasionally.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's Ron, and then Harry has to swim down there, and he finds them, and I'm trying to go through this pretty quickly since we have to get to Order of the Phoenix too, but the main thing is that Cedric gets down there and rescues Cho Chang, who was his person he would miss, and Victor Crumb gets down there, and his person was Hermione, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, well, Ron's kind of cheesed off because she's fraternizing with the enemy.
Well, because he asked her to the Yule Ball. And, oh gosh, their argument after the Yule Ball.
Yeah. I'm glad they kept that pretty much as it was.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the best parts,
You know what the solution is. You need to get the courage to ask me before someone else does. And not just as a last resort.
And he's like, that's even the point.
That's completely not the point. It's like, yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, he's sitting here thinking, I think Hermione gets the point way better than Ron does.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the case most of the time.
And see, this is when it really first becomes obvious that Ron and Hermione are going to end up together.
Yeah, because they argue like a little married couple.
They're always, going at each other, and because Ron is so jealous of her and Victor, and
yeah, it's so cute.
It really is.
But anyway, so the other hostage down there is obviously Fleur's little sister, because she looks just like her and it's a little girl. And so Harry looks around and Fleur's not there. And he starts to worry that, because the song sounds like, if you don't rescue them, then they're gone.
Like, yeah, we're going to keep them.
Yeah, which doesn't sound very good. So he keeps looking for Fleur, and Fleur's not there. So he goes ahead and wastes time rescuing Gabrielle. And of course, they kind of make fun of him a little bit, and Ron's like, you didn't take the song serious, did you? I mean, Dumbledore's not going to let us get hurt. And Harry's like, okay, dude, you were asleep. You don't know what it was like down there. It's scary. So, but they give him credit for having, a high moral fiber or something like that, for trying to rescue all of the hostages instead of just his own. So that's the second task. And so at this point, Harry and Cedric are both tied for the lead. And there was also a bit where Ron didn't. He thought that Harry had put his own name in, and he was just kind of jealous for a while, but he got over that. So we'll.
Yeah, after the first task, he's like, I figured anybody would have to be barking to put their own name in there.
Yeah. So, but he was acting kind of like an idiot for a while, but he got over it, so it's all good. So.
Which it's kind of understandable. Ron, he grew up poor, and here he comes. He's best friends with Harry Potter, but Harry still gets all of the attention. Harry's got all this money, and Ron still doesn't have anything, and
it's hard for him not to be jealous. I mean,
yeah, and he's a kid, so I mean, you can forgive it.
Yeah, I do for the most part.
But again, it's not so bad in this movie, but in all of the movies, it really bugs me that they kind of play up the Ron as a doofus thing, and I think I mentioned that last time.
You did.
Because there's a lot of things. Ron grew up in a wizarding family. There is a lot of things that he should know that Ron and Hermione shouldn't. Or Harry and Hermione shouldn't.
Right.
Because he grew up with it. He knows how the wizarding world works, and I don't care how many books Hermione reads, she's never going to understand it like Ron does until she's lived in it for a while.
Right.
And it's kind of a recurring thing through all the movies that when they play up this Ron as a doofus thing, it annoys me because it's always something that he should know.
No, I agree. I think he kind of, I mean, definitely in Deathly Hallows, he redeemed himself for the most part.
Yeah.
He was a much stronger character in the Deathly Hallows movie than he had been previously.
Yeah.
Well, on to the third task, which is basically a big, huge maze.
Yes.
And the Triwizard Cup is at the middle of the maze. And the people in first place get to go in first, the person in second place goes in second, the person in third place goes in third, and whoever gets to the cup first is the winner. Sounds like a pretty good way to decide of things. So Harry goes through and he's actually kind of surprised that there's not that many obstacles. And then you hear, then you hear Fleur screaming. And so something happened, something happened to her. Then you find Cedric and he's running away because Victor Crumb is attacking him. So they stun him and they're like really surprised. We thought that he was actually a good guy and, not a nice guy, and he's attacking people. And so that leaves Harry and Cedric together, and they split up for a while, and there's the Sphinx, and then there's a giant spider, and then there's the cup. And both Harry and Cedric end up at the cup at about the same time. And Harry tells Cedric to take it. Cedric tells Harry to take it. Harry decides that they will take the cup together.
Yeah.
Except that the cup is a portkey that takes them to this really creepy graveyard.
Yep. Where there's Wormtongue.
Yeah. Who is commanded to kill the spare. Which he does, and Cedric dies. Just boom. Like that. No warning, no lead up, just
Dead.
And that is absolutely shocking. The first time I read the book, I sat there stunned for several minutes. Like, what just happened? No, that's not right. So yeah, that was pretty shocking, but not as shocking as what happens next. There's a big cauldron, and Wormtail gets something out of one of the graves that's in the graveyard. He cuts off his own hand and puts it in there, and then he gets some of Harry's blood and puts that in there too. And then dumps in this thing. It's about the size of a baby, but it looks like all scaly and reptilian, and you realize that's the form that Voldemort has currently taken, and he's just kind of gross looking at the moment.
Yeah.
And so it goes in there, and this spell and this potion, and I don't know what, but all of a sudden, guess who's back? It's Voldemort. And I do have to say that I thought that Ralph Fiennes was a perfect choice for Voldemort.
He wasn't going to take the part, but I think his son threatened to disown him if he didn't.
I think Richard Harris had a similar experience with one of his grandchildren when Sorcerer's Stone came around. It was like one of his granddaughters was like, "You have to do it."
And when he found out that he got to wear cool costumes and all this makeup and stuff, he wanted to do it.
It is pretty cool makeup. I mean, come on, they got rid of his nose.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they did a very good job with the creep factor on Voldemort.
He's really scary.
It's just like I knew.
Yeah, which is funny because Ralph Fiennes is a nice looking fella.
Yeah, well, you can do amazing things with makeup.
Yeah, and to make him look like that was very impressive.
So, yeah, they kill Cedric, and because of this spell or potion, whatever they've brewed up, using Harry's blood, Voldemort can now bear Harry's touch.
Yeah.
And he summons all the Death Eaters, and a battle between him and Harry ensues, and something funny happens when those wands face off.
Yeah, they connect somehow.
Priori incantatem.
Yep.
And Harry actually mentions, or the book actually mentions that Harry can see fear in Voldemort's eyes. That this kid is actually besting him.
Right.
And basically Priori incantatem, when the wands connected and Harry started forcing it back towards Voldemort, the last spells done by this wand were regurgitated, I guess.
Sort of, yeah.
And if it was somebody who was killed, then it was kind of an echo of that person.
Yeah, kind of like a ghost, but not really.
Yeah, not as permanent as a ghost.
No, they were only there for a few minutes.
Of these that came out of Voldemort's wand, 2 of them were Harry's parents.
Right. Well, one of them was Cedric, who
Yeah.
asked Harry to take his body back to his parents. It's like, huh, okay. Yeah, remember, Cedric's dead.
Yeah.
Let's just drive that knife a little bit further into the gut.
And his parents tell him, we're going to help you. When we say now, you break free, you get back to the Portkey. So that's what he does. He grabs Cedric, and he realizes he can't drag Cedric to the Portkey, so he uses Accio on the Portkey. And he disappears and comes back to the Quidditch pitch, which is where the maze was set up. And Cedric's dead, and Harry tells Dumbledore that Voldemort's back, and then we start finding out what's up with Mad Eye.
Yeah, because you think with this big, huge thing happening with Voldemort, you think that that's like the big end climactic thing. At least I did when I read it. I was like, okay, you have the big meet up with the big bad guy, and that means that that's like the major thing of the book, and then the rest of it's going to kind of trail off and then, connect on to the next book. Except, Mad Eye takes Harry to his office, and he starts asking questions, but he's asking it really strangely. He's asking, did Voldemort punish the Death Eaters who hadn't tried to help him and hadn't tried to find him all of these years? And he starts acting really, really strange. And then you find out that it was Moody who had put Harry's name into the cup. We had already kind of mentioned this, which that was a big surprise. You did not expect Moody to be a bad guy, because I sure didn't. And then he says that he's going to bring Harry back to Voldemort, and that he was working for him all along, and all this other stuff. But then Dumbledore bursts in with McGonagall and Snape, and basically says, yeah, that's not Moody. And it turns out that it's not Moody, it's Barty Crouch Jr.
Yep, and he's the one that was actually snooping around Snape's office.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was stealing ingredients to make his polyjuice potion.
Mm-hmm. So the real Mad Eye Moody has been locked in a trunk all year. Yeah. And yeah, so that was what I'm saying. It's a double plot twist. Because first you're like, no, Moody can't be the bad guy, and then you're like, oh no, that's not Moody.
Yeah, Moody's not the bad guy. No. That's not Moody.
It's like she'll twist it, and then she'll twist it even more. It's very twisty. But yeah, and then you have basically the end of term feast, which is, kind of a memorial for Cedric. Again, you're like, how in the world? I mean, Cedric wasn't a main character, but you get attached to him pretty quickly.
Yeah. Because
he's kind of your average kid. I don't want to say he's nothing special, because obviously he's something special, or he wouldn't have gotten picked for the Triwizard Tournament. But in some ways, he's just really average, likable fellow. And, but I think I mentioned this before. This book made me cry the first time I read it, because it was a turning point for Harry. And not that he hadn't kind of gone through something like this already, but it really was a loss of innocence in a way, because he's always kind of felt lost because of not having his parents, and then he finds Sirius, but then he can't be with Sirius because Sirius is on the run. But this is the first time that he actually felt responsible for somebody's death.
Yeah.
Because he feels like, because he told Cedric to take the cup with him, in a way, Cedric's death is all his fault.
Yeah.
Which is so not true, but he feels that way. And there was this whole point where he's in the hospital wing because of everything that's happened to him, and he's trying really hard not to cry because he's a boy. There's even this part, he's like, I wish he says that he wished Ron would quit looking at him, because he feels like he's about to lose it. And Mrs. Weasley's there, and she just comes over and kind of wraps her arms around him and just holds him while he's going through all this. And he's like, he's never known what it was like to be held by a mother. And
Yeah.
that's what he was feeling for the first time on top of all of this other stuff. And it's just like, oh, God, this poor boy. I felt so
Yeah.
bad for him. And he's gone through so much, and he's only 14 years old. And it's
Yeah,
not over yet.
this one didn't make me cry. I'm not much of a crier, but
Even reading it
you
this
know,
time, I didn't cry, but I got a little misty. I'm not gonna be ashamed of that, because it's tough stuff.
it really is. And then, like I said, that's one reason why I think this book is when things really start getting dark and more grown up, because you have this tough stuff in there.
Mhm.
You know, there hasn't really been anything quite that on that level in the previous books. I mean, Jenny almost died, but she didn't die.
No.
It's a little different. It's a little more serious, a little more deep.
Yeah. And now there's more consequences
Yeah.
for things. Everything's not easy anymore.
And, you know, we have the setup for the conflict, part of the conflict in book 5, where Fudge doesn't believe that Voldemort's back.
Right. So let's go ahead and transition into Order of the Phoenix, because
Can I just say, outside of Prisoner of Azkaban, this is my least favorite movie of the series.
I can't remember this movie very well. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen it. I will say that Order of the Phoenix is probably, if not my favorite book, then it's probably one of my favorite books in the series.
Yeah, it's a really good one. But see, the movie left out a lot of the actual order stuff.
Right.
I mean, they could have retitled the movie Harry Potter and the Department of Mysteries, because we meet the Order of the Phoenix at the beginning of the movie, but that's pretty much it.
Right. Well, I
that
mean,
really
you don't see them that much in the book either, because they're off doing their order stuff and Harry's at school.
Yeah, but we're told a little bit more about it, and, you know,
That's true.
it just really annoyed me. It's like, you call this movie The Order of the Phoenix, but there's barely anything in here about anything the Order is doing. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione spend a lot of time talking about the Order.
Yeah, they do.
So, you know, it starts off, Harry's back at...
He's back at the Dursleys, and he's been basically doing everything he can to find out what's going on. He's trying to sneak in listening to the news. He's trying to get newspapers whenever he can to find out what's going on, if there's any kind of weird accidents or weird disappearances. And he actually ends up getting attacked. He and Dudley end up getting attacked by Dementors right around the corner from his house. And so he gets a letter from the Ministry saying that this is the second time that he has used magic in the presence of a Muggle. So he's expelled from Hogwarts, and they are going to be coming to destroy his wand forthwith. And you also find out that Mrs. Figg, the crazy old cat lady that got stuck having to watch him whenever the Dursleys went away, yeah, she's actually a squib who knows Dumbledore. Right. So, you know, I thought that was kind of funny. And I have this really good visual of her swinging her bag of cat food at Mundungus Fletcher for leaving. You know, crazy old cat ladies are the best. Yeah. But anyway, so then they're just bombarded by all of these owls. You have owls that are coming from Mr. Weasley saying that they're trying to sort it out, so stay at the house, don't surrender your wand. You have letters from Sirius saying, no, stay where you are, don't worry about everything, we're going to get it sorted out. You get another letter from the Ministry saying, okay, we're not expelling you, but you're going to have to go to a disciplinary hearing. You get another letter because the Dursleys are at this point ready to just go ahead and kick Harry out. And in some ways, I can't blame them at this point, because now there's this dangerous thing that has attacked their son. They're still horrible people, but
I love how Uncle Vernon can't seem to grasp the word Dementor.
Oh, but you find out that Petunia knows what they are.
Oh, yes.
That was kind of shocking.
I think it shocked her, too. She clamped her hands over her mouth after she said it.
Like, oh, where'd that come from? But, yeah, so finally Petunia gets this strange letter saying, was it remember my last? And yes. She tells Vernon that Harry has to stay, and that's it. Vernon's all confused, but, you know, I don't think there's much different about that. I think he's always a little confused. But anyway, so the Order of the Phoenix turns up and takes Harry away from the Dursleys' house, and it's Lupin and Mad-Eye Moody, the real one this time, and Tonks, who is also a pretty good character. She's awesome. And a whole bunch of other people whose names I don't remember, but they take Harry.
Kingsley Shacklebolt
Oh
and
yeah, that's right.
um,
Sturgis Podmore.
yeah, Mundungus. No,
No, he
Mundungus
wasn't
was.
there.
He's in the next.
A whole bunch of other people. Anyway,
Yeah.
they they fly on brooms and they end up in this little neighborhood in London, and they hand him a note that says the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix is at number 12 Grimmauld Place. And so all of a sudden there's this row of houses. There's no number 12, but then number 12 just appears in between. And
see, that's one of the things that bugged me in the movie is they didn't bother to explain the whole unplottable.
No, Moody just
and
tapped his staff, and then boom, there it is.
Right, didn't explain that Dumbledore was a secret keeper, and the only way anybody could see number 12 Grimmauld Place is if Dumbledore told them personally, and the note was in Dumbledore's handwriting, so that counts. They kind of left all of this out.
Yeah, but you find out
and that's part of what annoyed me.
But you find out that that's actually Sirius's house, or was his parents' house, and they're using it for headquarters. And Harry's not too happy during this book.
No, he's not.
Harry is full of rage, which he expresses in all caps at various points throughout. And he's really upset because Ron and Hermione have been in the middle of headquarters for the whole summer, and he's been stuck with the Dursleys, and nobody will tell him anything, and basically he feels like nobody's trusting him, even though he has done all of these things, and he feels like he's getting no respect, no credit for any of those, that he's basically being treated like a child, and he resents it. It's totally understandable. But
I mean, he does have a go at Ron and Hermione about it.
Yeah.
And Hermione's like, look, we understand, we know, but there's not really anything we can do about it. You can't keep yelling at us.
Yeah. But they spend a good portion of the summer trying to clean up that house because it's infested with all manner of horrible things. Let's see.
Like Creature.
Oh yeah, there's Creature, who is a house elf, who is a really nasty house elf.
He really is.
Yeah. Eventually, let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything that's major that happens at Grimmauld Place before they go to school. I just finished reading this. It's silly that I can't remember.
Well, there is, but they cut it out of the movie.
Which one? Which thing?
They find the locket.
Oh, yes.
That was one of the big crackpot theories later on, was something to do with the locket.
Yeah, because as they're cleaning out stuff, they find a whole bunch of crap, but they find a locket that they can't open. And the thing, this is another thing that J.K. Rowling does so well, is because it's something that is said completely in passing and in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff. They're cleaning out this big cabinet, and they talk about a snuff box that ends up biting one of the Weasley twins.
It bit Sirius.
Oh, it bit Sirius, that's right. The Weasley twins kept stealing things for them to experiment with for their wizarding wheezes.
Wizard wheezes.
Yeah. And, they talk about a snuff box that bites people. They talk about a music box that when it plays, it makes everybody sleepy. They talk about a locket that they can't open. They talk about several, Orders of Merlin awards that were given to various members of Sirius's family. They talk about the big family tree that's on the wall. It's just one little thing in this big, long list of other really strange things. But it's one of the things that's the most important thing in the books.
Yeah.
And she just drop it in there. The same thing she did with the diary from book 2.
Yeah. And you find out that Sirius is related to,
Everybody.
And he says that all of the pureblood wizarding families are related somehow.
Because if you're going to have your children marry purebloods, then there's only so many. Yeah.
And that actually is a clue to something else from Deathly Hallows. And it's something that I sort of picked up on the first time I read Deathly Hallows and had to go back and read it again and had to go back and get Half-Blood prints and reread relevant parts of that to work it out.
Okay.
But I'll talk about that when we get to Deathly Hallows.
Oh, you're gonna leave me hanging now. Okay. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
But yeah, you find out he's related to Bellatrix Lestrange, and he's related to Narcissa Malfoy and Tonks, and he's even related to Molly and Arthur Weasley.
Well, Bellatrix and Narcissa are sisters.
Yes.
Should mention that. That's how they're related.
Like I said, the locket is mentioned in passing, but it ends up being one of the most important things in the books.
Yeah, and she's so good at doing that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff she drops in like that that's just like da 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 boom da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then 2 books later, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
She mentioned that.
Yeah. Oh, Harry does have his hearing, and Dumbledore swoops in and basically stuns the Ministry with logic, and they can't argue their way around him, so they end up acquitting him of all charges. Which that was a great scene in the book.
I'm still mad that they left out his squishy, chintzy armchair.
Yeah, that would have been funny, but that's all right.
That's part of that twinkle that Dumbledore has that they kind of decided to ignore.
Yeah.
Granted, they also ignored what a smartass Harry really is.
Yeah, he is, especially when he's irritated.
As a smartass, I can appreciate that.
He gets a mouth on him when he gets irritated, which is quite enjoyable, actually.
It really is.
But so okay, they go to Hogwarts and they find out they have a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
Imagine that. We've only been through,
seems to happen every year. How weird. Okay, so and this time it is Dolores Umbridge, who is
nasty piece of work.
She is. Oh gosh.
But she, basically, she is how the Ministry is interfering with the way Hogwarts is run, because Fudge has got a chip on his shoulder and is determined to ignore the fact that Voldemort has returned. And they're running articles in the Daily Prophet making Harry and Dumbledore both out to be crazy.
Right.
And undermining what authority Dumbledore has in the wizarding world, which he had a lot. But apparently Fudge is afraid that Dumbledore's going to try to take over the Ministry of Magic and, take his position, which Dumbledore doesn't want it. Dumbledore just wants to run Hogwarts.
Right.
Skipping a lot of stuff here.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that when she's teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts, Umbridge won't actually let them learn how to do the defensive spells. They're all basically just learning the theory, and that should be enough to get you through your exams. Because another thing that the Ministry is afraid of is they're afraid that Dumbledore is basically going to take the students and train them to be able to fight against the Ministry.
Yeah, Dumbledore's army, and that's kind of where that comes from. They decide that since they don't have a real Defense Against the Dark Arts class, that they're going to get Harry to teach them all this stuff. And they organize this, and they find the Room of Requirement, and it's, all decked out for them. Dobby helps them find that. But again, we've cut Dobby, out.
And they never really explained how they found it in the movie. It was just like, oh, very good. You found it. Okay. I was like, how and why and okay. That doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
Yeah, that was kind of a continuity error there.
Yeah.
Because you cut Dobby out, you cut out how they found it. No, in the movie they show Neville walking in the hall, back and forth. He's pacing, basically, and he's thinking about where they could find a place, and these doors appear. Neville's the one that finds it in the movie.
Right.
They don't really explain it, but they show it.
Okay, let me ask, why are they trying to equate Neville with Dobby in the movie? Because they've given Neville a lot of Dobby's things to do.
They really have. I didn't really think about that till just now. I guess because they're removing Dobby and everybody loves Neville, so let's just give it to Neville.
Let's just let Neville be important.
Because, he really didn't have that much in the books until the later books.
True.
So, anyway, they find the Room of Requirement, and it's all decked out, and they start practicing there, and they set up these lessons, and Harry's teaching them all this stuff, and they call themselves Dumbledore's Army.
Right. Now, I will say we haven't mentioned one of the new characters we get, another new character we get in these books, and that is somebody from my house, which is the House of Ravenclaw, and that is Miss Luna Lovegood.
I love Luna.
And she is so adorable, for one thing, and I loved her in the books. I loved Ivana Lynch playing her in the movie. She just
nailed it.
She's a huge fan of the books. That's why she even auditioned, and she's got that look. She's got the whole attitude and the whole facial expression, everything. She was so perfect. But
the dreamy voice, and
she really talks that way too, which is funny.
See, she was born to be Luna.
She really was. It's not even funny. But she's the thing I like most about Luna is she is her own person, and she doesn't really care if you don't like her or you think that she's weird. That's fine. She does not really care what other people think. And there's precious few of those people in the world. And she is her own person. She is a free spirit. And if she wants to go off with her father and go hunt down Crumplehorn Snorkax, then she's going to do it.
Yep.
But I just had to mention her because we don't get to spend a whole lot of time with her until the end. But, we meet her earlier than that.
I love Luna. They call her Looney because she is kind of crazy.
She's a little weird, but, that's perfectly fine. The best people are.
Hey, I'm a little weird. Yeah, I love Luna. She's awesome. And also in this book, Harry finally gets, a little progress with Cho. They kiss under the mistletoe.
His crush. Although, Cho's not doing real well. Because she was dating Cedric, and now, as Hermione tried to explain to the boys, she said she's sad about Cedric, and she feels bad about liking Harry, and she's not playing Quidditch as well, and she's falling behind in her homework, and she's still feeling so horribly guilty, and Ron's saying, how can one person feel all of those things without exploding?
Yeah, which is brings me one of my favorite lines. It's just because you have the emotional range of a teaspoon, Ronald Weasley, doesn't mean we all do.
Yeah, you tell him.
I love that.
But
yeah, that's great. So, they've set up Dumbledore's army, and somehow Umbridge finds out, and she declares that all clubs, teams, gatherings, blah, 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 must be approved by her, which actually disbands all the Quidditch teams.
Right. It causes all kinds of problems. She basically does everything she can possibly do to try and bring every single aspect of life at Hogwarts under her direct control. There's many things that she does to this effect, like you said, disbanding all of the groups and clubs and teams and everything else. She tells the teachers that they are not allowed to talk to the students about anything other than the subjects they are paid to teach. They are, let's see, what else does she do?
She did a lot of stuff. Her educational decrees.
Yeah.
She was, and she went and sat in on all the classes and
she inspected all the teachers.
Yeah, and ends up sacking Trelawney, which causes a scene, and all this other stuff. And then there's the attack on Arthur Weasley. Harry's asleep, and he dreams that he is a snake, and he is trying to eat Arthur.
Well, he attacks Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wakes up and goes to see Dumbledore, runs into McGonagall, and basically McGonagall and Dumbledore get Harry and all the Weasleys out via Portkey before Umbridge can find out and say anything about them leaving. And this is right before the Christmas break, so they don't really miss much. I think they took Hermione too, didn't they?
No, Hermione turned up later.
Yeah, she showed up after break started. She took the night bus. Or something. Anyway, she showed up at Grimmauld Place, because that's where they portkeyed to. They went to Grimmauld Place, and they spent the holidays with Sirius, and he was all happy about it, because, he's kind of been sulking, because he can't get out of the house.
Right.
And Arthur gets better. Basically, Harry saved his life, but Harry gets in this mood where he's convinced that Voldemort is possessing him, and turning him into a snake, and making him attack people.
Right.
And I think it's intentionally absurd because you're just like, Harry, really?
Well, you can kind of understand where he's coming from to a certain degree because he did see the attack and he did see it from the vantage point of the snake. But I also really, really, really enjoyed when Ginny was able to kind of put the smackdown on him.
Yes.
Because he spends several days trying to hide from people, and then Hermione shows up, and Harry is bombarded by Ron and Hermione and Ginny. And Hermione's like, we know that you think that this is happening. And Harry's like, well, yeah, and that's why I've been avoiding people. And Ginny's like, well, that was really kind of stupid, since I'm the only person that you know that's actually been possessed by Voldemort, and I could tell you what it feels like. And Harry's like, oh, Oh yeah, I forgot.
Duh.
And I remember this part because he was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot," and she said, "Lucky you." It's like I don't think Ginny ever forgot what happened to her first year of Hogwarts
No. You
because
wouldn't really forget something like that.
no,
I mean,
and
you can kind of understand Harry forgetting because he's been through so much more since then.
yeah,
Like, watching Cedric die. But Ginny, yeah, that's going to stick with her.
yeah, and so he finally is comforted by the fact that he is not being possessed, that something else must be going on. But that's when he is told that he will start studying occlumency. And unfortunately, he has to do it with Professor Snape.
Yes.
Neither one of them is particularly happy about this situation.
No, they're really not, because they really do not like each other.
No. But through these lessons, you do find out a little bit more about Snape's history and a little bit about why he's such a jerk. And let's see, they did it a little bit differently in the movies. In the movies, they had, during one of the occlumency lessons, Harry throws up a shield charm, I think, and ends up doing legilimency on Snape kind of by accident. But in the books, Snape leaves. Well, yeah, Snape leaves behind a pensieve where he's been putting his memories so that Harry couldn't see them. And then Snape gets called away, and again, Harry puts his face down in the pensieve, even though he knows that this is a really bad idea and that Snape is going to be pissed. But he's feeling a little reckless, he's feeling a little upset, so he just does it anyway.
Well, Harry is a rule breaker, but we can't deny that.
No,
Harry does tend to step outside the lines occasionally.
Yeah. But
I mean, he doesn't do anything that's illegal or that would really hurt anybody.
No, and I don't think he would.
No, he just kind of colors outside the lines.
Yeah. But he finds out, and this was another thing that was just kind of sad in the book, but he finds out that the whole time when Snape had been telling him that his father was arrogant and a jerk, that his father kind of was an arrogant jerk, because he sees a memory of Snape when he was the same age that Harry is now, and basically Harry's dad, James, and Sirius, because Sirius was in the memory too, they basically attacked Snape for no reason. And Harry's mother, Lily, turns up and tries to defend him, which Snape doesn't seem to appreciate very much. He says he doesn't need any help from a mudblood like her. And she gets, her nose bent out of shape, and it's like, fine. But it was really kind of sad, because there was this point in the book where Harry said that he was always really proud when people said that he reminded them of his father, and he's like, but what if he doesn't want to be his father anymore?
Yeah.
I was like, this guy can he not get a break? Can we not?
No.
I mean, really?
And okay, another thing that really annoyed me about the fifth movie is they left out Ron and Hermione being prefects.
Yeah, they did. But they cut down a good portion of it, but they did leave Fred and George being the heroes of everything, pretty much.
And I love the part where they're in the common room and they're talking, and Hermione says, don't go picking a row with Malfoy. He's a prefect. He can make your life miserable. And Harry's like, gee, I wonder what it'd be like to have a miserable life. Or a horrible life.
Or a difficult life.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
He can make your life really difficult. And he's like, gee, I wonder what it'd be like to have a difficult life. And that's where, Harry being a smartass, I'm just like, they leave this good stuff out.
Yeah.
They kind of ignored that part of Harry's personality.
But the Weasley twins decide that they are going to just cause as much havoc as they possibly can, which they're very good at doing. And yes, they set off these wonderful fireworks, which in the movie is the only thing that they show, but they also have a portable swamp that they set up in one of the corridors. And
yeah, they do a lot.
Yeah. And they encourage other students to do it too, but eventually they get caught and basically leave school. They drop out because Harry had given them his winnings from the Triwizard Tournament the year before. So they had money to go ahead and open their joke shop, which is now in Diagon Alley.
Weasley's Wizard Wheezes.
Yep. And so they summon their brooms and they take off into the night.
And they kind of, give it to Umbridge very good before they leave.
Yeah. And the best part of that is when they look up and they see Peeves and they say, "Give her hell for us." And Peeves like salutes them and is like, "Yes, that's what we're gonna do."
Yeah.
And after that, pretty much all of the students are trying to step into the class clown shoes, as it were. In the meantime, Harry and Dumbledore's army is really working harder than ever to try and learn as much as they can. And that's really the main thing that is giving Harry any sense of purpose and any sense of accomplishment, because obviously classes are not going well. The whole thing, we didn't even talk about the whole thing with the detentions that Umbridge gave him, where he has to write with the special quill, and as he just has to write lines, and that's it. But as he's doing it, like this weird red ink is coming out and the back of his hand hurts, and you realize he's actually writing it in his own blood, and it's carving the words on the back of his hand.
Yeah, because that's not creepy.
Do you know how much that disturbed me the first time I read it? I mean, ugh. That was that really bothered me the first time I read it, and it wasn't like I was young when I first read this. I mean, I was already a grown up and everything, but I was still like, oh my god, that's disgusting.
And that really shows you what a piece of work Umbridge is. That she has concerns for her students. I mean, she's there because she cares about the students. She's a ministry pawn. That's all she is.
Right. But but Harry, he doesn't really have his class. He's working really hard in his classes because they're going to be taking their OWL exams at the end of the year. So he's working hard with that. He's working hard with Dumbledore's army. He's been banned from Quidditch, so he doesn't even have Quidditch to help him.
Yeah, because he wants to be an Auror. That's why he's working so hard.
Yes. And he had talked to McGonagall about that, and she was telling him about all of these different classes and all of the different tests that he would have to take. And of course, when he's talking to her, Umbridge is overseeing that meeting, and basically says that there is no way possible that he would ever become an Auror because of his background, because of the ministry. And McGonagall, I love her. Are you sure you do not want a cough drop, Dolores?
I love it when Dolores inspects her class and she kind of puts her in her place. Then that was pretty funny.
She is very, very good at doing that.
And Maggie Smith was born to be McGonagall.
I've said it before and I say it again. I love her so much. She is awesome. I've always liked her, but she is McGonagall down to her toenails. It is perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I thought Imelda Staunton was a pretty good Umbridge too.
She was.
Except she wasn't ugly enough.
No.
I mean, she was a very pretty Umbridge. Umbridge is supposed to look like a toad.
Yeah, toad. Of course, this whole I will not tell lies thing comes back to haunt her when Harry wants her. Is it when the centaurs take her?
Yeah.
And she's like, tell them, yada yada. And he's like, I must not tell lies, Professor. And I'm like,
that was good. But yeah, so McGonagall basically says, I will help you become an Auror if it's the last thing I do. And they get into this big, huge fight. And let's see. There's so many. This book is so massive. Like I said, 870 pages. We didn't talk much about Hagrid's little brother.
Grop.
Hagrid was missing for most of the year because he and Madame Maxime were out and trying to communicate with the giants, and it didn't quite go very well because the Death Eaters were also there. And he brought one of them back because he found out it's his half brother. And the other giants were picking on him because he's so small, because he's only 16 feet tall.
Yeah.
Oh, so that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
But let's see.
But that's Hagrid for you.
Yeah.
I mean, this man who tried to raise a dragon.
Yeah. So there's so many things we're skipping, but let's go ahead and sort of skip to the end because we've been talking about this for a while now. This is going to be another long episode, and next week should be shorter since we're only talking about one book.
Yeah.
So there you go. But
Maybe we won't skip as much either.
Yeah. So Harry keeps trying to learn occlumency, but it's not working because he can't clear his mind. He's so full of emotions that he just can't control it. And so
A teenager to clear their mind of emotion.
yeah, it was a pretty dumb idea, but
Nailing Jello to a tree.
yeah. But anyway, so he finally has one of these dreams. He's been having dreams about the Ministry of Magic, and he has one where he's going through this door and going through this passage, and finally he's able to get through it, and he sees that Voldemort is there and he's torturing Sirius. And it feels just like when he had the vision with Mr. Weasley. So since it's the same, it feels the same as that vision, he assumes that this one is also true. And he has to try and figure out how to get to the Ministry, how to save Sirius, because he can feel his scar hurting, but not so much that Voldemort has killed anybody. But they end up getting caught by Umbridge because he was trying to use her fire to contact Sirius through the flue, and he gets a hold of Grimmauld Place, but Creature's the only one there, so he thinks. And Creature says that Sirius is gone. So, let's see. Umbridge catches him and Hermione trying to do that, and then you have the rest of her inquisitorial squad, which is Malfoy and a bunch of other Slytherins who are being smarmy, catch a bunch of other students that were trying to help them. And this was one of the most telling things, is because first Umbridge calls for Snape to bring her more Veritaserum, and Snape's like, I don't have any more, so what? And Harry can't believe that he forgot that, oh yeah, there is one more Order member left. Snape's here, okay. He tries to get a message to Snape, but he has no idea whether Snape got it or not, because Snape's kind of being nasty.
Right.
He's being Snape. And so then Umbridge says that she's going to use the Cruciatus Curse on Harry. She's a teacher.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So obviously doesn't happen, and Hermione comes up with this plan to try and lure Umbridge out to the forest, which she does, and Umbridge gets taken away by the centaurs, which is kind of poetic justice, since she hates half-breeds so much. So let's see, it's Harry and Hermione and Ron and Ginny and Neville and Luna.
Yeah.
Yes. And they decide to take the Thestrals, which we haven't talked about the Thestrals, but they're basically like these skeletal horse creatures, and they're going to fly to the Ministry, which is great because only half of them can actually see the Thestrals, because you have to have seen somebody die in order to see the Thestrals, and, well, not all of them have. So I can't imagine what it's like riding a flying invisible horse.
Yeah.
That just sounds scary.
Neville, Luna, and Harry were the only ones that could see them.
Yeah.
Because Neville saw somebody die. Luna saw her grandmother die. Harry saw Cedric die. Which, okay, this is kind of a thing that occurred to me earlier. You have to have seen someone die in order to see a Thestral. Why couldn't Harry see them the whole time? He saw his parents die.
He didn't see his father die. His father was downstairs trying to fight Voldemort off. Now, theoretically, his mother did die right in front of him, but there's a couple ways how maybe he didn't actually see it happen if she was trying to do anything else to try and get Voldemort away. That's the main theory, I think.
That occurred to me. I was like, but wait a minute. But then he saw Cedric die, and suddenly he can see Thestrals.
Yeah.
And he thought he was crazy at first. Then he thought he was really crazy when Luna said she could see him.
Yeah, but it's okay. You're just as sane as I am. Not reassuring.
Not really, Luna.
So they get to the Ministry, and they finally get through to the Department of Mysteries and through all the doors and the door that spins around with all the blue candles on it, and they find this room that has all of these strange glittering orbs on all of these shelves. And actually, in the movies, I thought that this was visually quite good. I thought that the prophecy room looked just about perfect. But they get to...
these orbs are prophecies.
Yes. Which we don't...
And only a person who the prophecy is about can retrieve them.
Right. And so they get to the place where Harry had seen Sirius, and there's nobody there. And he's like, well, they have to be here. What's going on? And I think it's Ron who says, your name's down here. And so he sees that it's attached to this particular orb, and he picks it up. Harry does. Mm-hmm. And then the Death Eaters show up and like, okay, you took it off the thing, so now you need to give it over to us. Which this was something in the movie that really ticked me off, because in the movie, Harry actually does. He hands it over. Whereas in the book, they fight to the very end until it gets broken. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, Harry would never have just quietly handed it over to Lucius Malfoy. What are you thinking? But anyway, there's one more thing that they got completely wrong. Are we surprised? No. Oh. Anyway, so let's see. The Death Eaters show up, including Bellatrix Lestrange, and she's crazy. Yeah. But they get separated, and they're fighting off the Death Eaters. Pretty much all of them end up getting hurt. Hermione gets hit with some sort of spell and is completely unconscious. At first they think she's dead, but then they find out that no, they think she has a pulse. Neville gets kicked right in the face and can barely talk. Ron gets hit with something that makes him like really just kind of loopy. And then he gets attacked by there's a tank full of brains down there. I don't know why. And he gets attacked by one of those. And let's see what else happened. Ginny broke her ankle. I don't know if anything really bad happened to Luna. I think she mostly made it. But they fight for their lives basically, and they end up in this room with this archway that has a veil floating in it. And Harry thinks that he can hear voices talking. Nobody else, well, Luna can hear them, but nobody else can. And the Death Eaters follow them there, and it's Harry and the Death Eaters, and then Neville shows up, and then Dumbledore shows up, and the rest of the Order.
Yeah, and the thing, this whole battle ensues, and this is where Sirius dies. He falls through the veil. And in the book, that actually got me to choke up a little bit. In the movies, it was just kind of like, eh.
But, yeah, okay, so Sirius falls through the veil because he was dueling Bellatrix, who is, his cousin, and Harry is just filled with uncontrollable rage. He goes after Bellatrix and actually tries to use the Cruciatus Curse against her, but he can't do it. And then Voldemort shows up, which is, you know, kind of bad news. But then Dumbledore had gone after him, and Voldemort and Dumbledore have this big, huge wizard duel, which ends in Voldemort trying to possess Harry and trying to get Dumbledore to kill Harry to try and kill Voldemort, which Dumbledore doesn't do. And eventually Voldemort grabs Bellatrix and they disapparate because the rest of the Ministry has shown up, including Cornelius Fudge, who's like, oh my gosh, he's back.
Yeah, where have you been?
Yeah, and I feel like Dumbledore was going, yeah, really? Really? Okay, yeah. So, by the end of this, you find out Harry and Dumbledore have kind of a heart-to-heart where Harry is really not doing well, and he starts... I want to say it's a temper tantrum, but that's kind of cheapening what he was feeling. But he's in Dumbledore's office, and he's like breaking things, and he's like, I can't take this anymore. I want all of this to end, just to be over. I can't keep doing this. And so Dumbledore finally sits him down, and I remember this was a quote that was released before the book came out, but it was the quote where he says, I'm finally going to tell you what I should have told you 5 years ago. Yeah. And you're like, finally, okay, it's about time. And he explains that the prophecy is about Harry and Voldemort, and that basically both of them cannot live while the other survives. So either can
survive.
Right. So either Harry's going to have to kill Voldemort, or Voldemort's going to have to kill Harry, but one of those two things has to happen.
Yes.
No pressure.
None. No.
And then there is this whole bit that the prophecy may have meant Neville, because certain things could have applied to Neville as well, but then Voldemort took it upon himself to in the words of the prophecy, mark Harry as his equal, literally because of the scar on Harry's forehead. And so now, on top of everything else that has happened to Harry, he now has this, where he was talking about it on the train, where he says now he knows he has to be a murderer or a victim. And now, before I said he's only 14, now he's only 15. That's not much better.
And I remember, too, there was something, Dumbledore says that he thinks it's significant that Voldemort chose Harry, who was a half-blood like him.
Right. And not pure blood, like Neville.
Rather than Neville, who was a pureblood.
Yeah.
And two, I find it significant that he chose Harry because of the things we learn in Deathly Hallows.
Right. Well, we'll get to those when we get to Deathly Hallows. But, yeah, it was... These two books, they're really where the story just picks up, and everything gets a lot more serious and a lot more to the point, because now we are in it for the long haul. We know what the end should be, but we have no idea how we're going to get there. And
this is when I really started getting into the books, and I was like, oh my god, I have to read them when they come out. I have to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, because I went to the midnight parties for Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows. Mm-hmm. Because I had to have them immediately. I'm like, I must know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where you get that whole, oh my god, this is serious, something's going to happen. It's how is she going to do this in only 2 books?
Right.
You know, so that was when I really, really got into the fandom.
Well, I mean, I started getting into the fandom after I read Goblet of Fire, but like I said, Order of the Phoenix is probably, if it's not my favorite book, then it's definitely my second favorite book, because there's so much character development with Harry, and to me it's all believable. He's not this perfect little hero. He's like I said, he needs to go in therapy, because
he's a teenager.
He is a teenager. He's a very realistic teenager who is having too much put on his shoulders, and at times he is very angry about it, and rightfully so. He has gone through lots of loss and heartache in those 15 years, between being basically abused by his aunt and uncle to being attacked by Voldemort 4 times. Which,
we're lucky he's as well adjusted as he is.
Really, that's not even an understatement. I mean, seriously, I don't know how he's not lashing out at people every single day, which actually he kind of was doing in this book. Never mind. But
yeah, he's kind of dumb in this. Not as much as, you know, I would have had I been in his situation, but
yeah. So next week we will not be quite this long.
Oh, God.
I know. I don't know how I'm going to edit this one, but I'll figure it out. And if it's a little bit long, y'all just have to deal and forgive us this time, because these are 2 of our favorite books. So, you know, we can't shorten it any more than we did. And we still left things out. So I guess now we know what the movie people feel like.
Yeah. But at least they were trying to put 1 book into 2.5 hours, not 2 books into 1 hour.
Okay, granted. In which case, we did pretty good. But... Yeah. Next week, we will talk only about 1 book, and so it should be a lot easier. So we'll be talking about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which should be a lot of fun. I like that book, too.
I do, too.
It's the last 3 books, to me, are the best, I think.
Yeah.
So we learn a lot more about Voldemort and about just everything related to him and how the prophecies kind of intertwined into all of that. So, that'll be next week. And if there's anything you want to contribute to the discussion, because we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, please email us at bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. Any of your thoughts about the Harry Potter series through book 5. And if we get some of them, we'll read them on the show next week. Jess had also had the idea to do some Harry Potter trivia.
Yeah,
so,
if you have good trivia questions, because I'm good at trivia.
Yeah, send us your hardest questions and see if we can answer them. That's a challenge to you. So do that. You can, like I said, send it to our email. You can also send it to us on Twitter. We are at BibAnonPodcast, or you can leave it as a comment on our official website, which is www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com.
I think that'll do it for tonight.
I
Kind of went way
I think
over.
it better do it for tonight, or I'm never going to get this thing edited.
For real.
So we will talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.